Hey everyone, Rodney here at Cleves Tech, and today I'm going to be going over a quick rundown of the latest version of Fooocus 2.5.0. Now, if you've not moved over to the new version, and if you do run into issues when updating, I do have a video I put out the other day that does cover one of the more common issues that you might run into. And if that doesn't help, you can always head over to the GitHub page. There's more information and details. I'll put a link to the update page so you can check that out and also look over in all the details, because I'm not going to cover every tiny thing that was changed. Just all the major stuff that's going to really affect you from how I see it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to get out of the way is just some of the more simple basic stuff. So one of the first things is new default models. As we can see here, there's been a few changes. Now, I'll use the anime one for example. So now if you haven't used that preset before and you go to use it, it will download the latest model. If you already have one of the previous models, it will not grab the latest model. You can either do it manually, or what you can do is if you want, let's say for the anime one, we can edit our BAT file in here, go in here, and at the end here, we can add always download new model. And by adding that, when we go to launch it, it's gonna download the latest model and make sure it has the latest one. So you can go ahead and change that. And now when we launch that, it'll go ahead and download that latest model if you don't have it already. Now, the other thing that's been done is he updated Python dependencies, improved the code to make it more reusable, and just a bunch of good stuff for the future additions to Fooocus. It'll make things easier. That's my understanding for him, for other new things to be added. The next thing that was done, masterpiece, Fooocus masterpiece style. It used to have the WLOP included, and that was just removed from there. Now, the next thing that was added, if we go into our advanced section, developer debug mode, you've always had the option of trying different samplers and schedulers in here. There is a new one in this list right here, the restart sampler. So this one, my understanding is the way it works is it reinitializes parts of the image generation. That's supposed to improve the quality and give more variety. I haven't tested it to find out if that's actually true or not, but one thing I do know is it's definitely slower. Normally, an image for me with the default settings on quality would take me 25 seconds for an image, and with this one, it takes about 45 seconds. So it is definitely slower. Whether it improves the quality or anything like that, that's debatable. Like I said, I haven't tested it or anything. It took about the same time to do one of on the speed settings as it normally does on the quality settings. But as I said, I haven't looked this over. I haven't tested it to see how it does when it comes to those sorts of things and its claims. So I may do something later on. I'll play around with it at some point. Another thing that's been added is if we go in, you can now specify the VAE to your presets. So what you can do is you can add to your preset the default VAE that you want to include in that preset. So that's one of the newer features for that. Okay, the next thing that's changed is one of the flags. So if you initially used to use the enable describe UOV image, you will need to change that. You will actually get errors if you try to launch it with that, telling you that you need to change it. And that has now been changed to enable auto describe image. So the way that works is there's a couple different areas that works in, but one would be in the describe tab before if you dropped an image in there. But also now when you drop something into the upscale and variation tab, it'll go ahead and automatically describe the image into the prompt. Now that's only if the prompt is not already filled in. If it's already filled in, it won't. Now the other thing to keep in mind, currently what happens when you do that, if you have other things set with your styles, that is going to change these over to the default style. So that's something to keep in mind if you do use that feature and you're going to want to use the auto describe, it is going to change those. Okay, next up is actually a minor thing. It's just an adjustment to the playground setting here, preset. So if you go over to the preset for playground, you'll know, well, if you used it before, the guidance scale was set to 3. Now it's set to 2 to prevent oversaturation.
and the styles have been just set to the default Focus V2 instead of the other ones as well. There's now a Pony preset. Now, if we select the Pony V6, I'm gonna have to let this go ahead and download because I haven't set this instance of Focus up yet. Now, for Pony, I'm not gonna dive into a lot of the Pony stuff. I do have a video on it if you wanna watch that, where I dive into a lot more about Pony. But I'm gonna just tell you the adjustments that have been changed here. So now we have the Pony V6 preset. And when you go over to that, it will, the styles will just be the Focus Pony, which I'll get to in a second. Models, it will set up the default is the standard Pony Diffusion V6. Now, I will mention that's probably the model you're gonna wanna use a lot in the long run. You're probably gonna wanna look for another model. This is the base model, and it is a little more difficult to use than some of the newer ones, but this is the base model of Pony. So that's the one that's installed on here. And also the guidance scale is set to 7 for that when you go to that preset. Another thing that you're gonna find, well, let me get to the styles. So as I discussed in my video on Pony, there's a special prompting that needs to be done. And instead of having to put that into the prompt, that's been created as a style in here. So if we go down to the Pony, where is it? Okay, here we go. This is your Pony preset here, or style. So it's going to add score 9, score 8 up, score 7 up, and then the prompt, the negative, score 6, 5, 4. Now, I'm not going to get into, there's some people who suggest the full line, score up, 7 up, and all that. And there's different variations of that. So if you want to create your own style for that, that's up to you. But that's the default one. It should work pretty well. I'm still haven't decided on exactly what the best way to use Pony is. I'm still learning. The other thing that you're going to find when that happens is if we go into the developer debug mode under in-painting, because, and I discussed this before in my other video, the default in-painting engine in Focus doesn't work well with Pony. So this preset, when you switch it over to the Pony preset, it'll also disable the in-paint engine, which you're going to probably want because that's not going to work well with any Pony model that I've tested yet. There's some that work almost, but not quite. Now, and I'm not going to dive into all the intricacies of Pony at this point. Just understand that that's how the Pony preset works. The other thing, since we're in on that as well, the playground preset, when we go to that, that will do the same thing, and it will change it to none as well because that in-painting doesn't work well. Or the in-painting engine from Focus, the 2.6 does not work well. So you want to just, that'll change it over to none as well. Another thing that's been added, configuration option to have a default in-paint engine version in presets and stuff. So if you want to change that yourself, you can do that in your presets. That's a new option as well. Okay, and the last part is going to be a combination. There's a whole bunch of things. They're kind of intertwined. I'm not sure the best way to show all this, so I think you'll probably have already noticed there's a new checkbox down here, Enhance. That I'll get to in a moment because it does also rely on some other things that are in the in-painting that have moved over from Mashbit's fork, if you've used that. I do have a video that covers the in-painting and the auto-masking, and a lot of that is the same stuff that's in here, but things have been changed slightly as far as configuration and where everything is. So let's check off the input image. I'm going to get to the in-paint section here, and I'm going to go ahead and grab one of these images. Let's go with this image here. You're going to notice there's a couple of changes. Well, the primary change you're going to notice is now this enable advanced masking features. That includes some things that normally you would have gone in, people that went into the advanced, the debug menu, and if you go into the in-paint tab, you're going to notice if you went in here before, there was the invert mask, you had the enable mask upload, those sorts of settings. Those have now been moved. So if you're looking for those, they're not gone. They're just in a different location. You'll note, like I said, there's more things up here. I'm not going to dive into those. So just be aware if you're looking for those things in that section, they're not there anymore. So I can close that now. Okay, so now as far as the in painting goes, things have changed a little bit because we now have the auto masking that came over from Mashbit's fork. It's a little bit better now. He's added some new features, enhanced it, improved it, and changed things around how they work. And I think it's much better. You're not going to have to dive into those menus as much for some of these. So we now have the enabled advanced masking features. This pretty much does what used to be the enable mask upload checkbox. So now when you check on that, it opens up the second section where you could still upload your mask as you could previously. So that part is still the same, but and the invert mask right here is no longer in the debug menu. So you'll have that as well in your primary in painting area. Now, one thing that's been added to Fooocus that came over from Mashbit's fork is segment anything and the auto masking. Well, let me show you the basics. If you haven't seen that other video or used that, you have different models in here, and SAM is your segment anything model. I'll cover that in a moment because that's the one I use most of the time for most things, but it depends on what you're doing. Most of these other ones are for selecting the whole person. So if I already hit select this one here and I click on generate mask from image, it's going to pretty much select the person. And there's just different models on how they select it. So you can try each one until you find the one that's working best for you. This is the clothing one. So full should theoretically grab all the clothing. Then you have upper, which should do the upper clothing if there's upper, if it's separated. But otherwise, you get a lot of times. I haven't fully played around with it because I'll admit I don't generate a lot of people. And then you have this one, which is similar to some of the other ones, the full body silhouette. Another one here, general use, same idea. And then this one is it's better at anime. So if you're doing anime stuff, that'll work better for the body of the anime. And then last but not least, but the best really in my opinion for most things, is the SAM model. Now, once you click on that, you're going to now get another prompt, and this is what you're looking to mask. Now, he's got some quick ones in here, and there's some advanced options, which I'm not going to get into for the most part on what all these do, but I will mention this one, the SAM model. You have 3 different ones in here. B at the end is the base model, then there's the large model, and then there's the huge model. The base model is the default. Most of the time I find that works pretty well. It's faster. The other ones do take much more time to use. So by default, we're using that one. And like I said, most of the time that works well. Now, what can we do with this? Well, we can do face. We can hit generate mask from image. We'll go up here and it should mask the face. And if it doesn't mask the face properly, you can then go in and change the model if you want and try a different one of those down at the advanced section to see if you get better results from that. The other thing I could do is just type what I want in here. So I could put purse and generate mask from image, and it selects the purse. And then we could just go ahead and we could just change the purse at this point. So we could do a blue purse. And let's see here, I'll just do one image. And now it's generating a blue purse. That's, for the most part, what's changed in the in-painting. So we now have the auto masking feature. Now, there are more things you can do with this. I'm going to be doing another video at some point, but I do have, if you really want to know more about this, if you watch the other video on Mashbit's fork, you'll get most of the information you need on using this. So I'm not going to dive into this anymore because I do have a lot more details on using all these functions in that video. The reason I showed that is because a lot of this also pertains to the enhance feature. Now, before I jump into the enhance fully, I do want to mention there is now an enhance tab in here. All that is for if you already have an image generated and you want to do the stuff that I'm going to show you in a moment in the enhance. You can do it in here. And so if we check off the enhance box now and I drop that, we can have this go through and do the same stuff. But so I'm not going to cover that. So we can close that. Now we have our enhanced checkbox. Now the purpose of this is it's supposed to be like a detailer, but better. It does the same thing, but it's better at detecting and masking things, is the theory behind it. I don't use this a lot yet because I don't generate a lot of the images that would be used for this, and the way I do things, it's just not something that I would traditionally use, but I can see why some people would use it. This one, what I can do here is, let's say a woman in the park with a blue purse. We'll do 3 images just for demonstration purposes. Now, once I've checked off the enhance, we have different options in here. So this is the vary and upscale. This allows you to automate those functions while you're doing these other things. So you could go through the idea behind enhance, if you haven't used like a detailer or anything like that, is this will go through. If I go through and click on this, it will generate the first image, then it will go through the steps, fix things like the face and things like that. So let's say I want to upscale. After I finish each image, I wanted to upscale each image as it went through. I could check that off. Now, before and first enhancement and after last enhancement, all that means is if you check off before first enhancement and leave that checked, what's going to happen is it'll generate the image. It'll upscale the image then it'll go through and do the enhancements. If you do after last enhancement, then it will generate the image, do the enhancements, and then upscale the image. Then you have the option, do you want to use the original prompts or do you want to use the last filled enhancement prompts when you would do the upscaling or what variation. So those are your options there as far as that goes. But I find for most things, this is just what I've learned so far, the basics. I usually have been using it with a before and first enhancement because the only thing what I've found this useful for is fixing faces, eyes, things like that. And normally I find you're going to want to do that after you upscale. You're going to get better results. In this example, I'm going to set this to upscale before the enhancements. And that's what I have checked off down here. So what this means is it will generate the image, upscale the image, then we're going to do these enhancements. You do have to check off each one to enable them. And then you got to describe what you want to detect. So let's say for these, when I generate these images, I want to first work on the face. So I want it to detect the face, which we could just click on that. Then I could put detailed woman in here. And if I wanted to put a negative prompt, I could put that in here. But now the key I found to this is you don't just want to do it this way, because if you're fixing the face, the hands and stuff like that, if you just leave it that way, it's really not going to change it and improve it that much. What you're going to want to do is go down into the detection and let's see the in painting. So we can leave the detection as is because we want to use the SAM detection for this because we're doing the face. Then under in painting, and this is the key thing we want to do here. So if we just did the standard in painting, it would just be like if we had in painted the image afterwards. The face will get a little better, but it won't get really good. So I find it's best to just normally go right to the improved detail. Yeah, so I go to the improved detail because what that does is it takes, and you'll notice when I did that, it changes these settings down here. If you've watched some of my other videos, you'll understand how this works, but it doesn't regenerate the whole face. It zooms way in, starts partially with the denoising strength at 50%, and it regenerates just to improve the detail and the facial structure and everything else. By doing that, you're going to get a much higher quality face because it zooms right in on it. If we were to just use the regular in painting, it doesn't zoom in that much. We're not going to get a huge benefit out of that. So as I said, this is how I've been doing it. Now, let's say we want to do first the face, then let's say we want to do the eyes. Okay. And you want to use the singular. You want to use eye, not eyes. is my understanding as it states here. Use singular whenever possible. And for this one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go down to the in paint, and I'm going to change that to improve detail. As I said, depending on how you're using this, you can do it different ways, but I'm just going to show you this for improving what I've learned. And we're going to leave this all the same down here. So we've got all this set up to do the eye and then detailed eye. I've done this. Oh, I have to check it off and enable it. This one here, I've got the face. Now, let's say we wanted to do another one. We could do mouth. And we could do detailed mouth. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to just change it to improve detail. And now we're all set. All three of these have been checked off. So the way this is going to work, when we hit generate on here, it's going to generate the initial image. Then I have it set to upscale it to 2x before we start enhancing it. Then it'll go through and it'll enhance one at a time. Now, for this, I'm going to actually turn on, just so you'll see what's happening. I'm going to turn on the debug enhanced masks. Now, when we do this, we're going to actually see those masks be generated while it's doing these images. Okay, so our first three images have now been generated. And as we notice here, it's now upscaling these images. So it's first gone through and generated the original images. It's going to take those original images, and now we're going to go through the enhancement process. And the first step of that enhancement process was the upscale. Okay, so now it's upscaled the image, and we see that it first did the face, improved the face. Now it detected the eyes, and now it's improving the eyes. And as you can see here, it zooms right in on those. If we didn't set that to improve detail, it wouldn't zoom in as much. So you get a little bit better image. But I find the improved detail, if you're using it for these sorts of things, that's what you really want to use. So now the last thing it did is it detected the mouth, and now it's going to improve the detail in the mouth. Now, the one thing I find is a lot of these are hit or miss. I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't do a lot of these types of images where I find that it would be useful. I'm the type of person, I try to find an image that I like, and then I'll use in-painting to improve it. I guess some people like to spit out a lot of images and just have them done. Okay, and now it'll go on to the next one. So let's pull these up just so we can look at how this works. This is the one thing you're going to find. There's going to be multiple steps along the way. So we have one image here. That's the original image. Then we have the upscaled image here, as we can note by the file size. Then we have the improved face, then the improved eyes, face, eyes, and then improved face, eyes, and mouth. So this should be your final image. Now, you may want to go back and look at these to make sure and decide on which one you want to keep, because it may not have gotten all the steps perfectly. So let's open one of these up. We can check these out. Okay, so let's pull up the original one. Okay, so we have our original face here. This is the one that hasn't been upscaled. Oh, bear with me. I'm not used to this image viewer yet. So that's the original face. That's not upscaled or anything. The one top left here, that's the original, then upscaled. Let's close that one. And then you'll see the one over here improves the face. Then we have this one, which improves the eyes. And then we have this one, which improved the mouth. Now, obviously, let's say you didn't like how the mouth came out. You could just keep the one that did the eyes and then go from there. You can do in painting. But I guess the idea behind these are it eliminates some of the steps. You don't have to go through and do all these steps with in painting, and you might get a really good image right from the start with that. Now, and you'll see in here, because you won't normally see these masks unless you turn on this option in here. I'm still using it so I can see how well it detects it, because I know one thing I see a lot, sometimes is the face doesn't get fully detected, especially for men if they have beards and things like that. And that gives you a good idea if it's doing a good job or not while it's running. The one thing I do want to mention in here as well is if we go through back into these settings, you'll notice there's some things in here like hands. I'm not sure that that's really going to be that helpful in all honesty, because one, you're not going to know if the hand's bad in the original image. So I suppose you could regenerate another set of hands and hope that you get one of the two, but it's not going to detect that there's a problem with the hands. And so if it's got an extra finger, it's just going to mask the extra finger, and it's just not going to usually fix anything. Now, the one thing you could do is you could do hand, and with the improved detail, as I have down here, and we could do detailed hand. But the problem is, if you don't have a hand that's properly formed, you're going to end up with a detailed hand that's not properly formed. So I don't know if that's not really useful for hands as far as I can tell. And you could use this for anything. It doesn't have to be face, eye, mouth. You could use this for replacing apples. I mean, let's say you don't want green apples and you are doing pictures of apples and you just don't want green apples. You could tell it, look for the green apples and replace those with red apples. Well, that ended up being longer than I had planned, but hopefully you have a better understanding of how the enhance feature works. I will have a video that goes into more detail soon on that. I do want to thank Mashbit for an excellent job on Fooocus these last few months, as he's been doing a great job at making what I consider the best balanced, stable diffusion tool, and the one I use 95% of the time. Now, don't forget to check out some of my other videos if you've not, to learn how to get the most out of Fooocus. And also hit that like button if you found the video helpful, because it really does make a huge difference. I do want to thank all the people that have donated to help keep the channel going, and remind everyone that I do have a Patreon page set up if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and have fun creating.